Okay, so the big question tonight is what exactly is a cartoony style piece of animation? And so we're going to go over two big things tonight. Namely, what are the main ideas that you should think about when you're put on a show that is a more cartoony style? What are the ideas behind that? And then secondly, what are the tools you can use to achieve that? Let's start with the definitions here. Cartoony animation is merely an exaggeration of real life. So what does it mean when I say it's an exaggeration? Well, the dictionary definition is number one, to represent as greater than the actual case. Number two, to enlarge or increase to an abnormal degree. I would say exaggeration is one part of the equation here in terms of making something cartoony. You have exaggeration. On the other side, we have to balance it. So if we make something big, on the other side, we have to make something small. So this is where we're going to get into our two main terms to think about when you want to do something cartoony. We're going to have something exaggerated on one side. And on the other side, you have to simplify it you have to simplify the other side in order to make sense that this thing is exaggerated. So if we take this example, on the left, you have a regular stock photo of a kid. And then on the right, you have Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Both exude the same idea, kind of flexing, rambunctious kid. But what is exaggerated about one is the idea, the spiky hair, the big grin. But if you're exaggerating these ideas, you have to simplify other things, as in you have to simplify the graphic shapes that he's exuding, how his hair is not individual strands of hair, it's triangles. So again, exaggerate and then simplify. So here are four things you could think about that you may want to exaggerate and simplify when you're doing cartoony animation. Design, your posing, your timing, and your breakdown keys. So let's talk about each one. The design aspect of how a design is going to be exaggerated or simplified, well, to be honest, is not really going to be in our realm. You're going to come onto a show and it's going to have an established design. But it's your job as the animators to be very, very knowledgeable about what the director, the art director, your animation supervisor wants from these designs. So in other words, the design is going to help determine actually your animation style. Is it a little bit more realistic? Is it a little bit more cartoony? Is it way super, super cartoony, like as in like kids TV shows? So number one, when you come onto a new show, be familiar with the design and understand how that design is going to affect your animation. Posing. So posing, the big thing you want to exaggerate are the emotion. What's the idea behind the character's motivations? Anger, suspicion, happiness, and how do you exemplify that in posing that goes beyond realistic? For example, let's talk about a little clip from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So think about the posing of our main characters.
What you doing, Flintlock Wood?
Just holding my hands behind my back respectfully, sir.
You know what you are, Flintlock Wood?
No.
A shenaniganizer. Hey, Tom Fool. You see my beautiful angel son, Cal?
So what's the main thing that's exaggerated here in terms of the posing? It's got to be the silhouette. So not only are we talking about the emotion involved, but how does that silhouette become exaggerated and simplified in order for us to read it? And so if we're gonna talk about timing in a little bit. So if the timing is gonna be really quick, that means the posing needs to be super, super clear because we're gonna be spending more time on the pose and less time on the in-betweens. So speaking of timing, let's actually quickly talk about timing. If we have a regular scene, you have your A pose, or you have your A pose and your B pose, and then you figure out how much time is gonna be spent in between. In terms of making things a little bit more quote unquote cartoony, most likely we're going to spend more time on the pose and less time on the in-betweens. But how do we make that believable is with adding little things like an anticipation, an overshoot, and a settle. Because we are shortening the time that the character has to get from A to B, we need to make sure we add these little things to make it believable for that quick transition. Anticipation, overshoot, and a settle. So we're going to just show a really quick little clip here of our man Scrat. So all we have here, like if you think about it, let's say you're the animator and your task, your animation shot is to have Scrat just do a head turn. So he's going to go from here to here. So how do we make that a little bit more cartoony? See, like that's your shot. So if you can see here, we have an anticipation, a breakdown key, an overshoot, and a settle. So all in all, let's count the number of frames here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 frames. Less than 1 second. So we have less than 1 second to make a head turn. So again, we have all the makings of it. Pose A, pose B, anticipation, breakdown, overshoot, settle. Pose A, pose B, anticipation, breakdown, overshoot, settle. If anything, you can consider this a good formula. If you have really quick actions, we use this all the time on Scrat. You'll probably like, unfortunately, Scrat's not around anymore, but like for maybe the minions on anything Illumination makes that's a little bit more cartoony, you can use this kind of formula to do really quick actions and make it believable. We talked a little bit about breakdown keys. So this is what is going to make that quick transition not only believable, but really fun and interesting to watch. Breakdown keys are what I love to get creative with, because in other words, it's going to be so fast that the audience doesn't see it, but they feel the action. And so you can get away with a lot of crazy stuff in your breakdown keys. So let's talk about 3 of those different types of breakdown keys. Okay, so as a first test, this is from a short film called Vern on Vacation. Has anyone seen this? It's done by Cartoon Network. But let me first play you the audio of this one shot. And I want you just to imagine here, you're given, this is your A pose and your B pose. And here is the audio for it.
Shrink me down, Horace. I want to go exploring.
So let me show you what the actual shot looks like now.
Shrink me down, Horace. I want to go exploring. Shrink me down, Horace. I want to go exploring.
See how crazy you can get sometimes with your in-betweens? So we have anticipation, crazy smearing breakdowns, overshoot, and settle.
Exploring. Shrink me down, Horace. I want to go exploring.
So that's the fun with cartoony animation, is you can come up with some crazy things for your in-betweens. So